everybody, and welcome to the November edition of Oil Tech Talk Live with NORA. I'm Bob O'Brien, the Education Director for NORA, and my co-host is everyone's friend in the industry, Alan Mercurio of Oil Tech Talk and Oil Tech Talk Chatter. Hey, Alan, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, good. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Does everybody know who our guest is going to be?
A very special guest this evening, Dave Holdorf of TACO. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Well, there he is.
Welcome aboard.
Good evening, everybody, and Bob and Alan. Thanks for inviting me in on this tonight. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. We're looking forward to it, and we'll definitely be done in time for Thursday Night Football.
Okay, good.
Guaranteed. That's for everyone.
Yeah, with some time in between. Yes,
with plenty of time to grab something to eat. Why don't we jump right into it? I think a big question everybody's mind is ECM pumps. Are PSC circulators going away?
In time. So yes, this has been conversation that's been going on for at least 10 years now. And over the last bunch of years, it was kind of on hold. So when we first started getting involved in ECM circulators 10 years ago, the thought was it was going to happen in 2020. And, well, government changed a few times since that time period. And, and when we were talking about in 2020, if they were going to mandate high efficiency in there. And all of a sudden they said, well, if you're going to create any new mandates, you need to take two old ones off the books. So, which meant nobody was going to work extra hard. So everything just got put on hold for a couple of years. And so now everything's done. Everything's completed. Nothing can be changed. So it doesn't matter who's in office and what's going on right now. That we will see May 22nd, 2028. Standard efficiency circulators by all manufacturers will, so to speak, cease to exist. What I mean by that is there can't be any more in the facilities from the manufacturers. So they can be out in the field, they can be at wholesale distribution, they can be in contractor shops as long as inventory's there. But at that point, that day, there will be no more leaving, say, TACO at that point either. So they already have to be on a truck on the road.
So everybody's going to be ECM.
Or it's not necessarily ECM. It's just a higher efficiency. Right now, that's where everybody's going. That's the easiest and fastest way we can get to getting that higher efficiency. But if there's something new technology motor-wise comes out, hey, we'll go after that too, I guess.
Is there other technology? It's news to me. I thought ECM was it.
Well, we're playing around with nuclear-powered ones soon. So, yeah.
Micro reactors. I never heard of any other options other than ECM.
ECM is that motor technology that is available. Yeah. So it is it's just the mandate's just saying we had to reach a certain efficiency standard. So there are ways, like we have motor. So that was 1 horse and below. 1 horse and above was already mandated in 2021. So that was already taken care of. There are some pumps that we make that do not have an ECM motor on it, but they hit a certain efficiency threshold. So that's what the mandate is looking for. ECM allows us to get to that technology right now. The standard AC doesn't.
Got it. That's basically right around the corner. That's 2.5 years.
2.5 years going to come fast. Yeah,
it's the last 2.5 years went really quick. So I mean, it's literally right around the corner. What's the lead up to that? Do you have to cut back production way in advance? You're gonna that one day you're making 007s and the next day you're making 007Es, or you need like a year wind up?
So the 2.5 years is a short amount of time for us because there are some models that we don't have a direct replacement for yet. As we start analyzing and figuring out what are we going to do, is there anything that we're going to discontinue? For example, do we still make the TACO 110, the Red Baron? Right? Do we still make that? And we still make it today, and we make quite a bit of them, believe it or not. There's no ECM motor for that just yet. So, yes, the 0010 would be a replacement for the TACO 110 series, but then again, we can't make the 0010 either. So we do have some circulators that will fit into that realm when it comes to the programming and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of decisions that still need to be made in the next 2.5 years. Do we keep the tap on a full 100% up to that date. So we just set up some new machinery at TACO right now in Rhode Island, and we have the capability of 1.2 million ECM circulators a year. So that machine alone that is just up and running does cover off on almost everything right now. And by the time that comes along, we'll double that. We'll have another machine set up to do that. So right now, the AC version, we can do up to 800,000 motors a year right now. And the older ECM is doing around 400,000 a year. So the new machine can actually replace everything that we're doing. But with that being said, we've also been seeing a lot of growth. So we need to make sure we plan for the growth also at the same time. So, yeah.
Growth is always a good thing. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So the beauty of it is the new windings section takes up a quarter of the space of everything else that we had out there already, which it will free up a lot of space in Cranston, Rhode Island, because we are packed to the gills right now. There's just not a lot of space in that building at the moment.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging and stuff like that. We just renovated the Fall River facility, which is our commercial fabrication section, and we've already outgrown it. We literally opened it over the summer, and it's already too big. It's already too small. We added 40% more square footage, and we already outgrew it this year. So we're already looking to purchase other buildings in Fall River so we can do some more fabrication offsite, into another building already. It's insane. It's insane.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. It has been a really good year, but it's also a challenging year when we start looking at numbers like that. It's hard to keep up with the demand. So it's a delicate balance to make sure that we have enough inventory for customers out there as well.
Great. Anyway, that's quite interesting. The ECM thing is going to be it's a revolution. A lot of guys are leery of anything that's new. So I could see some resistance. I could see 007 sales, conventional, going through the roof as we get closer and closer to that deadline. Yeah. You start getting black market ones, and people are going to hoard them. It's going to be like toilet paper during COVID.
It is an interesting conversation. Every time I do bring it up in a training class, and I said, this pump, I hold it up in front of the room, and they're like, this is going away. And they're like, oh, we're going to start stocking up now. And it is an interesting thought process. But as you know, the 007E, the ECM version, has been out for 9 years already. And we've been making this ECM version of the circulator since 1999. So when people say that because they're afraid of it, and it's already been out 25 years, so it already has the half of the lifespan that 007 has. 007's been out for 50 years, and now the ECM version has been out for 25 years. So I understand their trepidation. We don't like to change too much, but yeah, you're not going to get serial number 001. All right. That one's 25 years ago already. Yeah. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the new stuff, man. We tried to make it as it's a drop-in replacement, performance, everything. Yeah.
Same curve,
very similar curve. Just a little change in the curve. The 007 goes out to 23 gallons a minute, which is a 250,000 BTU boiler. Almost, right? We're never doing that many BTUs with a 007 any longer, right? So, but what we did with the 7E is brought it down to 16 gallons a minute. So 160,000 BTUs when you think about it in that respect. So still a lot of pump out there,
But actually, when you bring that up, it brings oversizing to mind, over pumping, I should say, rather than oversizing. Yeah. I mean, you see it so often. Everybody talks about a 20-degree delta T, and you rarely, in the field, usually you put your hands on the pipe, and that's the delta T, right? The going out and coming back. But when you do actually check it, it's never anywhere near 20. 9 to 15 F delta T.
Yeah, I see a lot of normalcy in the 6 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 to 15 on a design day. Yes, on a design.
These are cold days, right?
Yeah. But the normalcy is going to be, 6-7 degrees. and the boilers are just doing this, banging on and off all day long. Yeah. Yep. So it is a big pump. It is. I stand there in front of the room when I do a training class and I say, this is a BAP. It is a big pump. Yes.
Again, do you still sell the 005?
Yeah, but just not many.
Yep.
Not many.
It's not big enough. Everybody knows that.
It's just
a bigger pump.
7. It's just slightly smaller.
Yeah,
it's surprising how versatile that pump could be.
I know.
But its heyday was doing variable speed injection mixing is where everybody started using that. So where actually the 003 would have been a better pump for so many of those projects over the past. So
what's the downside of having those close delta T other than short cycling? Anything else, or it's just the short cycle, the banging on and off?
Yeah, it's the efficiency. It hurts the efficiency a lot. And, when I find that, you'll also see, depending upon the thermostat being used in the house, you'll see those temperature swings in the room, right? Because let's say you've got, 3/4 inch pipe zone and then you're sending 40,000 BTUs. You can send a lot of heat into that room. You don't need 40,000. You're pumping 40,000, but you only need 10. So you satisfy zones fast. And some people say, well, that's a good thing. And not really. I'd rather see that slow and gentle coming out of the heating system. So, when we say you've got a room that has a 10,000 BTU heat loss, that's 10,000 BTUs per hour. That's per 60 minutes. I'd rather put 10,000 BTUs back into that room in the course of, say, 50 minutes, not 10. Right? You slam it in there in 10 minutes, the air temperature gets satisfied. It creeps up a little bit, creeps down. You want to get that nice even air temperature in a space. So when you can slowly deliver the BTUs, that's when I find the comfort really comes into play.
Which leads into my next question. On the webinar you guys did last week, you mentioned the new Delta T pump coming out.
New/old,
okay.
Meaning that we've done Delta T for years. So over 25 years we've been doing Delta T pumps. So we started off with our NE00. We could add a VDT to it. So you could have a 007, 008, 0010 VDT, which was a variable Delta T circulator. And it's just an AC circulator where we could actually make it variable speed. But the downside to that was we could only get to about 40% speed. Couldn't get too slow with it because all you're doing is chopping the sine wave on the alternating current. So what we got going on is ECM. We came out with our VT circulator series that came out about 12 years ago, just when I came on board here at TACO. So that was an ECM version, which we were able to get down to about 2% speed. And then, really dial in the temperature. So next year in 2026, we're going to see some new designs of the circulators, which is it'll look like a 7E or a 15E if you're familiar with those circulators, on that smaller platform. And the Delta T pump that we have today has a digital display and some buttons on there to do the programming. We decided to take all that out because everybody carries around a great display in their pocket already. All right, much better display than I can put onto any product out there. So we're doing them all in Bluetooth, so you can do some of those settings via that way instead. So yes, we'll see a smaller version, which will be also on that high capacity manufacturing line as well too. So that also helps bring the cost down in the current Delta T manufacturing out there. So new Delta T will be coming out in early 2026. Yes.
Looking forward to that. I think this could be huge on the residential side. We have a bunch of the bigger ones in the NORA lab. Mm-hmm. We've had them since 2016 and zero problems with them. They work perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But they're the screen, tapping your fingers on the up and down buttons on the screen. I think the Bluetooth is a huge jump forward. What parameters can you set other than Delta T? Anything else?
So you'll have the Delta T. You could use the circulator in set point mode. If you didn't want to change any temperature, you just want to maintain a fixed set point. And actually I use that in a few air handler applications. So I take the temperature sensor and I don't put it on the pipe of the water. I put it in the airstream. And so when you have an air handler, wet coil type of situation, the biggest complaint from homeowners is air temperature fluctuation.
Yeah, on and off, yeah.
Right. So now you put the temperature sensor in the airstream and you got a consistent air temp coming out.
It's a great, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. So I like to use that respect.
That's a great idea.
Some small snow melt systems with a flat plate heat exchanger. Maybe you got a little pad that you're doing outside the front stoop or whatever. You can use it to control that temperature going to the slab, and it'll ramp up and down as the snow gets worse outside. So you got set point mode. We're also going to have bypass mode. So let's say, you're working on a bigger cast iron project, meaning a lot of radiation in a building, a lot of large volume of water, and you're putting in a new boiler. And you put in that new cast iron boiler, and that boiler, if you start turning it on and it's trying to pump out 180 degrees and it's coming back with 70 degrees, right? What's that one thing you want to put onto the boiler from the supply return? Right? A lot of guys.
Bypass.
Yeah, your bypass.
Boiler bypass or system bypass.
Yeah, or equalizer line. Everybody has a different nickname for it, right? Yeah. And how do you set it up? You put a valve in the middle, right?
Yeah, preferably have, some type of a temperature probe built into it. Right. So you can actually monitor the temperature.
There you go.
Yeah, Alan's talking the way we should be doing it, right?
That's the differential thermometer right there.
Right. Yeah. You grab the valve and you go, yeah, that's about where I want it, right? So, but we put in the boiler return temperature, so you can program between 130 and 160. What would you want to see as the return coming back to the boiler? So now you've got really controlled. So the circulator will speed up and down as that temperature coming back to the boiler is achieved. So now we're not condensing a non-condensing appliance.
Oh, so it's built-in boiler protection.
Built-in boiler protection, correct. Yeah, so that's what you would do. Instead of the valve, you put the circulator in its place.
Sounds like a win-win. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to take them as we go along. Just pop them in the chat there.
Yeah.
Great.
Bob, if I may, before we before we move on from ECMs, I don't know if I know you've got a couple other things we were going to talk to Dave about.
Plenty of time.
But Dave, you and I ran into each other last week at PPA. Thank you for being there, PPA Tech. And started to have a little bit of a conversation with you. It's always about learning. I'm always very willing to say, open heart and open mind, we can always learn. And, as long as I've been around some of the new ECM stuff and believed I knew as much as I could possibly know and try to pass that on to technicians, you had shared with me, and I'm talking specifically the 0018, how, you have the app and the different settings like you were just referring to. You can go from zone valves to circulators. I believe there's 3 or 4 different settings in there, but also that you can watch the graph. So if you know what your GPM in your head, you're setting all that. And you had informed me, thank you very much, that because I've been telling students, I said, now that's just a visual. You still have to go like this. And you said, well, not really. There's a way you can actually tell the circulator that you want to do that from your phone. So I was going to just ask if maybe you could talk a little more eloquently on that. Okay. I think it's worth sharing people who might be watching us tonight, because I think it's an awesome feature, but even more awesome now that I know that, yes, you can actually make them changes directly from your phone. Right. So the 0018E circulator does have that Bluetooth chip in it existing today. So obviously the 15 the new Delta T version that comes out in 2026 is also going to have that same app. And yes, the dial on the circulator gives you some fine-tuned adjustments to between your different modes, right? We have thermostatic radiator valve mode, you've got zone valve mode, and you've got zone pump mode. So you have those 3 sections, and each one of those sections on the dial is broken down into 1, 2, or several different settings that you can do out of it. But when you get into the app, you actually have, say in the zone valve mode, you have now 8 different curves to choose from. So you can really fine tune it right from the app. So it doesn't have to be done from the dial. The dial portion was for if you didn't want to do it by app. So, you just set it and forget it type of thing there. The app allows you to fine tune it even in between those curves to really take a look at what. So here's the one thing I loved about the app when it first came out. And
some of the project managers back at Takeo, they called me up. They asked me to take a ride up to the factory and say, hey, take a look at this for it. Let's take a look at the app and then the circulator. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. So they had a small display, and very similar to the one that you have, Alan. Mm-hmm. They had set it up at the factory and in one of the meeting rooms. And as I walk into the room, there was about 10 people that came in behind me. And I'm like, what are you all guys doing here? They're like, oh, we're here to tell you all about it. I said, no, you got to get out of here. All right. I don't want you guys in here because you're going to tell me what to think and look for. I said, I want to be just like any other contractor out there in the field when he installs a circulator, right? You've been installing circulators for your whole life, all right, your whole career. Here's something new. And I know, if someone goes to put it in, what's the first thing they're going to do? Brand new circulator. They put it in.
Yeah.
And they turn it on. Yeah. And if it doesn't do what they expect it to do, then they go back and read the instructions.
Or they call you.
Right? So I know that's going to happen that way. Yes, we should read the instructions before we put it in, but hey, it's just another circulator, right? So anyway, so I kicked everybody out. I downloaded the app. I connected to it, and my revelation was, and you know me, I like to do the math. I like to do the numbers. I show everybody the numbers on how to get those numbers. This was the first time I've ever been able to see inside the pipe.
Yeah.
And I can verify my designs now. That's what I liked about the app the most. Yes, and then I can fine tune it to do what I want it to do because I did the math. I know the math is accurate, so therefore, let's make the pump do what it's supposed to do. Rather than oversizing it like Bob was talking about before. We're always oversizing, and when we have to pick a pump, obviously my design point's here. I got to get one that's up here, right? And now I was able to verify what it can do. So, yeah, taking a look at the app really likes, you can really fine tune it to make it do what you want it to do and what it's supposed to do. And then the other thing I look at is seeing whether or not it how many cycles it had during the year. So if you have a lot of cycles, that means you're still over pumping, and you can fine tune it. So you can see how many times it's turned on and off over the course of the year, which means, hey, things get satisfied. How do we make things more efficient, right? I like to see long on times. I like to see long off times. So.
Thanks, Steve. We got a question from Steve Nugent. You want to do it? I'll do the honors. From Steve. Thank you, Steve. Okay. I'm wondering if it might be advantageous to have the Aquastat talk to the circulator and or zone valves.
Very interesting. So we just actually, I think it was about 2 years ago, we just discontinued a product that didn't take off, but it took off in certain pockets because people knew about it. We actually had a 007Z. And it was a zoning circulator. So it was actually a 007 that had a switching relay built right into the circulator.
I remember those.
You could bring the thermostat straight in, or you could bring the Aquastat straight into the circulator to tell the circulator to turn on. But we discontinued that a couple of years ago because it didn't really take off well, right? Because we started seeing more than one zone in houses, right? When we start talking about, how many zones is normal today? There is no such thing as normal. So it's just not one, right? We don't see one thermostat any longer. So that was perfect for one zone homes. But now, yes, 3, 4, 5 zones, you can see in the house nowadays. So having the Aquastat talk directly to the controller, not necessarily straight to the circulator, is something that we can do in the future. Yes, Steve. So we have our new controls that we just came out with, the Dash 5s, the next generation controls, does have some software in there. At the moment, no, it does not. But we do have an app with that as well, which will be on the same app next year with the circulators, or the circulator will be on with the controls. For example, we've got extra terminals on there that we can do, let's say, a temperature sensor only instead of an Aquastat. How about no Aquastat whatsoever, and we just take a temperature sensor and put it in the tank and turn on directly that way. So that's kind of where we're going to. So eliminate a component, that you don't necessarily, another thing that has a switch and physical things that turn on and off and break.
Yeah.
Now it's just going to be a sensor tying directly in. So that's something that we're looking into and working on as we go through. So the new controls are there, but adding Aquastat capabilities is something for the future. Definitely. Yep.
Thanks, Steve. Great
question, Steve. Yeah.
For sure. Which and actually a perfect segue into the new control. Thank you, Steve. Laid up a softball there.
I know, right? I mean, it's almost like we hired them.
I know.
Put the stuff in there. So, we've been very busy. New controls came out last year. It was a rolling change from what your wholesalers had out there. So we went and updated. So last update we did to controls was about 14 years ago. And so we've been kind of collecting a list, all right, from talking to all the customers out there over the last 14, 15 years. What would you like? Or what didn't you like in the previous version? And we took a lot of that and put it into the new control. So a lot of the improvements has been on the install side. How do you install it easier? How do you install it faster? We gave you more room on the wiring on the inside the box. We gave back knockouts so you don't see the wires coming out of the top and bottom of the box. A couple more LEDs so you can see what's actually happening with the cover back on it. Things like that is what we did. Easily replaceable and upgradable. And I like the upgradable portion when it comes to transformers to put into the controls. Those transformers, sometimes you need to upgrade those transformers based upon the thermostats that you have. So a lot of thermostats today are large power draw. Or not a lot of them, but some of them are, right? So you're seeing some of them coming out and, hey, they almost need their own transformer by themselves so we can upgrade the transformers inside. It's just a simple plug and put a new one in.
In the field, you can just pop it out?
You could just pop it out one screw and pull it out and put another one back in again. Yep.
C terminal?
And the all-powerful C terminal on every zone, yes. So, yes.
I knew that was that was always a major problem.
No more resistor needed.
Yeah. So, well, actually, no. The resistors we still supply with it because there are still some thermostats that need them.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So it was one of those things. Do we put it on the board or do we put it in the bag? And it's, if we had put it on the board, then it would have been the wrong one for certain thermostats. So I found a few thermostats that need something more than what we have on the resistor. So
sure.
So we still left it in the bag, and everybody, we know how to use them if needed. I usually say when things go weird, that's when you want to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else new with it?
The biggest focus is really making the efficiency. Is still adding to the efficiency of the systems. We want these things to use the least amount of fuel. Limit the number of cycles that you have telling the boiler to fire, things like that. So we've done things like zone sequencing. It has an app built in there, so it allows you to do some zone sequencing. What I mean by that is not every zone in a house needs to turn the boiler on. It might be a small zone, or it's going to be in conjunction with another one that's going to come on soon enough. So I'd rather see longer run times of the boiler than the short cycling on the boilers. So you have that option. How's
it doing that?
So you go into the app and you tell what zone it is to not turn the boiler on. So it'll turn the pump on or it'll turn the zone valve on, but it will not fire the boiler until another zone fires.
Yes.
So, and if you've got a boiler that's got BTU sitting in it, might as well use it before it goes up the chimney, right?
Sure.
So we have that. We have post-purge built in. So last zone calls, let's put the BTUs back into that zone of the house when the boiler stops. So
is that programmable?
I'm sorry?
Can you program the time on the post-purge?
Yes. Yep. So you can change the post-purge time from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, depending upon the size of the boiler and your water content that you have in there. So that's on the switching relay. The zone valve controller will put it into the indirect tank. So if you have a zone valve board, you'll drop it into your indirect tank. And if you have a switching relay, it does it into the last zone that calls.
Cool.
So, and then we also do pump exercise out there. So that pump exercise, meaning no heating calls for 2 weeks straight. Turn the pumps on for 30 seconds to make sure they don't seize up in the fall, from sitting around all summer long, not doing anything. And we also have an option of doing 2 types of reset. We do an outdoor reset, weather compensation, which means outdoor sensor and modulate the boiler water temperature to add some efficiency to the system. But then we also added load compensation, what I call indoor reset. And what that does is it looks at just boiler supply temperature sensor. So you don't have to run your outdoor sensor. It's just the supply sensor. And now what you've got going on is the boiler starts at a low temperature that you program in and will start ramping up based upon run times of zones. So as the zones are not getting satisfied, we start changing that temperature. So rather than starting on outdoor reset, because outdoor reset is not bad. I love doing outdoor reset on systems, but it assumes this. The boiler is exactly matched to the heat loss. And 2, you only have 1 zone in the house. When you start thinking about weather compensation, right? So you do a heat loss on a house at 57,421 BTUs per hour. You need that on a design day, and that's all zones calling. So you want to see all zones calling at all times. So, and we know that's not reality. So the load compensation now is looking at what's going on upstairs in the house, how many zones are on, and how many BTUs are leaving the boiler. So now it's so to speak, a learning function of your load compensation. So that's built into the controller as well.
That's a great feature. I mean, it's seeing everything. It's seeing solar gain. It's seeing the gain from the human bodies, from the cooking, the dryer, it's seeing the real world rather than this theoretical that it's, 14 hours, so we need X supply time. I think it's a better solution. That's a great idea. We have a question from Jeremy Martman. Do the new controls have some type of internal auto reset fuse? And remind me of the name of the app.
Okay. So no, we still have the standard fuses that will blow if you're getting any voltage spikes or anything like that to protect everything. And there's a couple of spares that will be on the inside cover. So the main board itself has a 1 amp fuse, and the circulators have 6 amp fuses on them on a switching relay. And the name of the app is called Taco Control. So because when you just type in Taco, you're going to get everything by Taco Bell and everything else out there. So, which again, it's starting to sound really good right about now.
It's only 6:30.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Jeremy. Good question. Anything else on the controls? When did you go to the plastic cover?
Plastic cover was 14 years ago. Yep. So the Dash 2 to the Dash 4s, the metal cover, which had the lights on the side, was we stopped doing that in 2012, 2011. Yep. 2011. Yep.
The reason I asked the question is I think of the plastic cover as the new ones.
Yeah. And that was,
to me, it's a new control. I mean, they're so used to the metal for so long.
Yeah. So now the new metal covers, now the new plastic covers, it goes on easier. It's hinged, so it's only 2 screws on it. We actually gave a place to label the zones now because, I've seen so many job sites where guys go ahead and throw on, take a Sharpie out and write on the cover itself. The only one that looks good, zone 1. Right? Yeah. Everything else after that never lines up nicely. You start dipping and never. So we gave you a nice little spot to label it, so you can take out a ballpoint pen instead of a Sharpie that has been beat up over the years. To label it, little things, that we wanted to add and make them better. And it's just slightly larger all the way around. We put 5 ground screws on the inside also. So lots of ease of install. Yeah. Yep.
Jeremy's got another question. Thanks for that. What about any type of freeze protection like the EK Manager?
Okay. No, we don't have any freeze protection on it because obviously where these are installed is usually where the boilers are. So that ambient temperature is usually higher in that space already. But I do know, and the reason why we didn't explore it heavily was because we see so many thermostats already have freeze protection. Once they get below 42, 41 degrees, they're going to turn on and, communicate to the controller to turn on stuff in the house. So if that's what you're thinking about in that freeze protection. So usually it's the thermostats that are going to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple of boiler temperature controls that do it.
Yeah. So we don't want to take over all boiler control. I'm sorry?
I've been in a couple of houses where that saved the day, the freeze protection.
Right.
But you're right. It's tough to integrate it with a switching relay, with a zone control panel or a pump panel. I think it goes better on the boiler temperature control side.
Yeah. Upstairs in the house is going to freeze a lot faster than where the boiler is. Yeah. Yep.
That's for sure.
Keep that water moving.
Yeah. So that if you have challenges like that in projects, I would definitely make sure your thermostats have that freeze protection built in. That's the best way to go. I remember doing that in my previous job. We all my radiant thermostats all had that built in. So big time, because that was a lot of times more required in radiant because of the large volume, that it could take before, and the amount of water that was spread out throughout the house. So make sure you get those freeze protection in those thermostats that automatically kick on zones. So I did have a few people that were upset with that. My heat's on. I turned it off. And why is the heat on? Well, we were saving your house, man.
Or you get the vice one with the radiant when it gets a little warmer in the spring, and just there's thousands of pounds of mass. It's going to take quite a while for that to wind down. It's not instant. It's not like baseboard. You shut it off, and the thing would stay warm for a day or two, and overshoot obviously when they shut the heat off.
Yeah. Yep.
Circling back real quick to the ECM, the biggest complaint I hear from guys is, oh, you got to treat the water, you got to do this, you need a dirt separator, you need this. True, not true? Do you recommend it? Not?
Oh boy, how much time we got?
I thought it would be a quick answer. It's not a yes, no.
Yeah, so is there is no yes or no answer to that, right? In my opinion, is water quality is paramount today. We need to pay more attention to water quality, not because you have a circulator going into a project where you got to put a mag dirt separator in. We need to put water quality controls and take a look at water quality for everything. And for the entire boiler room, because and I get this a lot. Oh, they don't make it like they used to, right? And I'm sure you guys,
every day.
They don't make. You know what? You're right. We don't. You know why we don't make it that way? And then people say, well, because you want to make it cheaper. No, that's not. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Trying to make it cheaper. Actually, we can't make it that way because we're not allowed to make it that way. Meaning, as a manufacturer, and it's not just circulators, it's boilers, it's everybody in this industry, our equipment has certain efficiency standards that we have to get to. And the first thing that gets affected is tolerances of equipment. How things, because you got things that are moving, clicking on and off. You got relays, you've got obviously circulator spinning, you got boilers, and you had a lot of tolerance and a lot of leeway with really dirty water over the years. Nowadays, you take a look at a boiler, cast iron boiler, there's no mud drum and mud leg anymore. You have no place for that dirty water to settle out in the bottom. I remember 30 years ago going to a job site, we drained off the bottom of the boiler, and the contractor I was with, I have no idea who it was, and we pulled off this black gunk that came out the bottom, and he goes, look at that. And I'm like, ew. And he goes, that's black gold. No, that's crap, right? We don't want that. Not anymore. Because it sat in the bottom of that boiler, it didn't go anywhere. Today, that section of the boiler is not there, so everything stays in suspension. And if it does settle out somewhere on the boiler, it's going to settle out on the heat exchanger, which creates more problems for the boiler and the equipment. And I'm gonna tell a story that I had learned from one of my reps out in Minnesota, and I love this story he was telling me one day. So, anybody here buy and get a new vehicle, new service van, new car, new anything, and trade in the old one? Any one of you guys? And if you have, yeah, sure, definitely, right? And you turned in the old car, and you use that as your down payment, current car. So as you showed up at the dealer that day, the car went around back. And you're sitting up in front, and now you're just waiting for your new car. You're all excited for that new car coming. Well, while that car went into the back, they weren't going over it with a fine-tooth comb to give you your appraisal cost. What they did was they actually drained every fluid out of that car. They took the antifreeze, they took the motor oil, they took your transmission fluids, the differential gears fluid, everything. They drained it all down into separate buckets, of course, not the same one. And then they took all those fluids, went over to the new car, and poured it in. Sounds insane, right? But we do that a lot in our industry. We get all excited when we have a dead boiler on a project and we need to replace it, and we find 2 valves on the system, one on the supply, one on the return. We shut those 2 valves.
It's a home run.
We put the new one in, and we take all that dirty water coming right back into the boiler.
Chop and swamp.
Yeah, we don't want to do that anymore. Do not want to do that. And it's not just because of circulators. It's everything. It's low water cutoffs that you see in systems that you get in accidental activations. It's circulators. It's boilers. It's heat exchangers. It's everything in our system is affected by this. Dirty water. We had the tolerances before. Today we don't. So water chemistry. So mag dirt separators is one thing. Taking a look at the chemistry itself is another. And I suggest doing both on them. Taking a look at what's out there. And there's plenty of companies out there that will test the water. Now, I have a pool here. I don't know if any of you guys have a pool at home. And when I first got the pool, or when I first moved into the house, the pool was here. I used to bring the water down to the pool company, and they would test it for me. Now, here's what was interesting. Every time I got my water tested, I walked out of the store with $200 worth of chemicals. And I'm like, oh, my God, I can't believe it's that bad. I can't have my kids swimming in this, right? And then eventually I learned how to do the chemistry test myself. And once you learn the chemistry, after that, it's easy. And once I started doing that, my costs in chemicals dropped to $200 for the summer, which was really, now that you know what you're doing. So if you're not sure on your water chemistry, there's plenty, you can test the pH, check your pHs that are in there, check your total dissolved solids, treat the water. There's plenty of chemical additives that we can put in there. And even when you're doing glycol, we love putting glycol in. We hate it at the same time, right? But when we put glycol in there, it also needs to be tested. All right, that glycol concentration and the acidity levels that you can get over a couple of years' time, and then probably should drain it and start all over again after a bunch of years. So a lot of that maintenance to make these systems last longer is things that we, and homeowners don't want to necessarily have to know about maintenance in their system. But if we tell them why you have to do this, it's going to give you a really long life. You don't want to replace it every 10 years. So I know we're in a throwaway, lifestyle today, and it shouldn't be with our boiler rooms.
So you recommend testing the water before making that decision? Or should you install a dirt separator just on every job?
Never hurts. It never hurts. I think, when we start looking at what you got going on, if it's an old system, where you had an old cast iron boiler and maybe even some cast iron rads, minimum mag dirt separator. Get that magnetite that's floating around in there, and get it so that it's not, not just collecting at the circulator. But that might be the only place where it could select. Now, here's what's interesting. Yes, ECM has a permanent magnet built in, right? Why did that ECM circulator go into an old system? Because the older circulator failed, right? ECM has a permanent magnet. AC circulators have an electromagnet. So that's why it failed, was the water chemistry a lot of times too, right? If you had a seized up circulators, a lot of times the circulators seize up and then burn out the motors, right? And it's because the water was dirty. So you start thinking when you start thinking about why, not just because, hey, the circulator's old. Circulator being old doesn't mean anything, right? Otherwise, hey, you and the three of us would be out to pasture already, right?
I pulled plenty of perfectas out that were still working, 10 years ago.
Right.
They're from the early 70s, late 60s.
Wide tolerance, really wide tolerance when it comes to the bearings and stuff like that you had in there compared. And then the 007, it got a little tighter. And then we get to the 7E, it's super tight. So, but when you think about it, those circulators that failed, it could be because of a magnetite and dirty water issue, right? Long life, yeah, definitely. But 250,000 cycles is not easy to get to. That's what we design as a minimum lifespan on circulators.
That's quite a while. How many years is that on average? There is no average.
Yeah. Well, we equate it to if you had a single zone house, it's about 18 years of life.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Which has longer run times and things like that. But so sometimes you can hit that number faster. Sometimes you can hit it longer than 18 years in standard circulators. So, yeah.
Excellent. Any data, Alan? Good.
Well, we have another question here.
Good.
Okay, so from Joe. Joe, thanks for being here, brother. So it would be nice if they had an LED display, so when you name the zones through Bluetooth, you can see the names on the display. Now, I know you can see them on the display on your phone, because I named the ones, in the lab. But I think what Joe was saying is there a way to, you'd be steering at the switching relay, and the window would be big enough that it would actually spell out the zones.
Right. So the app is for you, meaning the installer group.
Yep.
The app is not a homeowner functionality. So yeah, that would mean we'd have to put an LED display onto the controller, which then would add more cost. All right. Yep. For something that's in the dark that nobody ever pays attention to.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So, those were thoughts that we had probably 5 years ago. Thanks, Joe. So yeah, we thought about things like that about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And then, Bluetooth became a much easier way to communicate to the controls themselves and eliminate that display. So, that was something we did explore, doing some programming through the control faceplate. Actually, you took the main cover off, and then there was going to be some buttons and whatnot on the inside. And again, that was all, what's the word I'm looking for? It just completely went out of my head. Like concept cars.
Yeah.
So, and then when we started looking at the realization and the costs, we were like, we can't go after that. And then Bluetooth and putting an app in became much better. Yeah. And easier to see. So, like when I talk about the new controls and we talk about having Bluetooth and, it's got an app to it. And if you don't want to use the app, you don't need to. If you're used to wiring your controls and you've done them that way for years, go right ahead. You get into some of the other functions like we were talking about where you got indoor reset or the outdoor reset and some of the other settings out there or the zone sequencing, then you need the app. If you're still doing that one-to-one lineup, all right, you're good to go and rock and roll. So like I said, the app is for the installers and set up to really fine tune it to the system itself. The other thing that one of the things that we added to that you can add to the control is communication back to the boiler. If the boiler, and we're seeing this more with our newer boilers that do have a 0 to 10 input signal or a 4 to 20 milliamp. So a 0 to 10 volt input or a 4 to 20 milliamp input, which means now we're going to take a look at what zones are on, what's the demand, and tell the boiler what to fire to percentage-wise.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with 0 to 10 is just a communication protocol, meaning 0 volts sent across the wires, turn off. 10 volts means run 100%. Yep. You set 5 volts, you run 50%. So now we can actually tell the boiler what to run to based upon the zones that are calling.
Yeah.
If that boiler has that input signal. So some of them do, some of them don't.
So you're basically modulating the boiler with the thermostat.
Correct.
That's a really cool concept. That's a new one to me.
Yeah, so now you take the outdoor sensor off the boiler and you can do it that way. Yeah. Yep.
Another question from Adam at Sippin Energy in Connecticut. I'd like to see it able to make a call for heat to any of the zones from the app. Instead of jumping out the thermostats in the panel, similar to the flash LED toggle that is already on the app.
All right. So, Adam, we do have that in the switching relays. We do not have that in the zone valve relays, the zone valve control. So, but in the switching relay, you can go to turn on the zones. You can go to each circulator and manual each one of them on, so you can check your wires. It will turn the circulator on. It will tell the boiler to fire. So yes, you don't have to go up and down the stairs all the time. But unfortunately, we do not have that in the zone valve control. So I'm not sure if you've used the zone valve controller. The flash LED just means you flash the power LED in case you have multiple panels on the job site and you don't know which one you're talking to. So, but there is a function to turn your pumps on and off from the app itself, rather than, yes, use, I like to call them STSs, sophisticated thermostat simulators. Jumper wires, right? So, yeah. I like the STS terminology instead.
That brings up another question. Does it time out after a time period? Because I've left more than one set of jumpers on a relay and gone back on the overheat.
No.
Yeah, you got 5 minutes.
It times out after 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that's a great feature. That's another one I wouldn't have thought of. That's an excellent feature.
So yeah, we have that in the switching relay.
Probably half a dozen times.
Yeah, if you can't find it, Adam, give me a shout. But it's not that. Actually, you just click on the zones, zone information, and you'll find it right there. So
great. That's a great feature. I have a question from Denny Reardon. When will regular 007s be discontinued and we have to use ECM pumps? There's a big price difference for improved efficiency.
So we started off the conversation with that. So the 007s are going to be done in 2028. Okay, so everything will be at that point. And yes, there is a price difference between them. And I've done a little bit of math to do the calculations to see, what your electrical savings are. So, for us, yes, we are purchasing those circulators and should be passing that on to the customer at the same time. And if you wanted to describe it to your customers, we look at the electrical savings, just electrical alone, you'd see in about a $30 to $35 a winter savings. And if you're looking at the circulator being about a $50 to $60 difference, you're looking at about 2 years in that offset in costs. I don't like to use the word payback or return on investment. It's just an offset in cost.
Yeah.
A return on investment or a payback means your boiler went and got a job. Yeah. So that means, it's going to do some work for you. We just, we want our equipment to use the least amount of BTUs and least amount of electricity as possible. So, but that will be 2 years. That will be in 2.5 years in May 2028, where the standard 007 is going to be gone forever. So we will probably start weaning off customers from their projected purchases. We have to. We have to start cleaning out space in the plant to set up the new machinery. So we may see that. I don't know if we are or not. Because we do have an expansion planned coming onto in the Cranston facility as well. So we may not. We may keep everything on to the last day. That's for other people to make those bigger decisions than me.
Yeah, Dave, if we can jump back to Adam's question, and you answered it fine as far as the app. You can turn the circulators on and off. He's asking if that feature is also available in the ZVC control.
So, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
And the reason for it's not being in the ZVC, we wanted it to be in the ZVC. But when you look at a zone valve control, there's no relay for a zone valve. The relay's in the thermostat. That's what closes, right? So in a zone valve board, when the circulator relay closes, that completes the circuit to the power terminal on on your zone valve. So there is no relay for us to control. Yeah. So that's why it's we were trying to do that, and we built a prototype, and then when we priced it out, it was double the cost of what we have today.
Yeah.
So to have that feature in a zone valve control, yes, Adam's going to say, all day long, right? It would have been hard for everybody to absorb that additional cost in adding all those relays for zone valves. So excellent. Thanks, Adam.
Answers that question.
Yeah.
Back to Denny's question. I have a perfect solution. And I mean, this is going to be a hand grenade. Zone valves. One pump. You don't have to buy it. Sorry, Dave, but buy Taco zone valves. But problem solved. You don't have to buy more than one 007E per job.
There you go.
Yeah, as we were saying, that 007 or 7E is still a pretty big pump, right?
For sure.
We're putting it on, and if we're zoning with 3/4 inch pipe and 3/4 inch zones, you're using on a 7E or a standard 7, you're only using 20 to 25% of the circulator. And that's if the zone is calling for 40,000 BTUs, right? Which is 72 feet of baseboard or an air handler that's 40,000 BTUs.
Very rare.
Right. So so a lot of times, so yeah, zone valves, me personally, yes, I'm a zone valve guy. I know we could probably get into blows here on the show tonight.
Oh yeah, that's like Yankees Red Sox.
But I will ask this question, everybody out there. All right, I want you to go to work tomorrow. Go to the job site. Walk in on the first floor of the house, and it's a job site you haven't been to before. Stand on the first floor and think about the heat for a second. Could you tell if it was zone valves or zone circulators downstairs?
I don't have to do it.
Which one's better? When you're upstairs, you don't know, and it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So yes, zone valves versus zone circulator is a personal preference to a lot of installers out there. Yep.
Yeah.
Tastes great, less filling. Mm-hmm. For the old people out there.
Yeah, I am a zone valve guy because I know what the circulator can do. And here's one of the biggest reasons I get a lot of people that say they want to do zone circulators over zone valves, because they see circulators fail. And you know why circulators fail? Because they hit that 250,000 18-year lifespan faster, because you put a couple of circulators in and they kick on and off a lot more.
Yeah.
But here, think about this for a second. You got a zone valve system. Let's say you got 3 zones. Zone valve 1 turns on, turns the pump on. Zone valve 2 turns on. What did you eliminate in the circulator?
The cycle.
Yeah. Zone valve 3. Zone valve starts satisfying, right? So your cycle count actually goes down. You'll get a longer life out of a zone valve in a circulator in a zone valve system than zone circulators. So
sold.
Yeah, so that's
you don't have to sell me. I'm a zone valve guy too.
You just got to think about it in that respect. And I know not every situation does that work in, right? Yeah. So I know where Denny is, and I know where a few guys are. You know, you need to have that redundancy in a boiler room, because you want to have one pump goes down and zone valves, and you got no heat in the entire house. I get that. I understand that, right? So, you know, but if you had 5 pumps in a job site and one goes down, you still have heat in 40, you know, the other 4 zones of the house. But think about this. Do you not get a phone call?
That one zone is always the baby's room or the sick grandma or whatever. Invariably.
You're still going, and there's probably a spare pump on your truck. So, and I also like to play devil's advocate and say, all right, so if redundancy was important, how many boilers did you put in? Oh, just the one?
Not a lot of multiple boilers residential.
Right. More things will break on a boiler than a circulator over its lifespan. So, yes, I get, again, you know, I'm also playing devil's advocate here and just like, you know, but that's a debate that'll never end. Yeah.
Nope.
Yep. So when you look at the 7E, so the 7E is not just a replacement for the 7. The 7E is a variable speed pump as well. So it will change speeds as your zone valves open and close.
Yeah.
So that's really the allure behind going after your ECM, especially when we're looking at zone valves. You want these things to change speeds. Now, if you put a 7E in a zone pump mode, it's not going to run full out. It will find its happy spot on what it needs to do. So it could drop its power consumption as well.
and then just sit there. Whenever it finds a spot, it's just going to go there and sit on that spot on the curve.
Right. Yep. And so when you go delta T, as we talked about beginning, whether you do zone valves or zone pumps, now that circulator will change speeds all year round, even in a zone circulator system. That's going to be the really great part about this delta T version in the smaller size. And now you think about delta T for a second, it is the only technology that is truly self-sizing a circulator, right? I think a lot of people have been chasing this for years and, hey, I want a circulator that sizes itself, right? It's going to put me out of work, right? Training and how to select and program circulators, right? You put a delta T1 in, call it a day, you're done, right? You never have to size it again because you still need to size it to make sure you got the right one in the first place, because we will have multiple sizes in that delta T as well. But when you take a look at that, now you've got something that's going to be truly self-sizing. When it comes to delta T, and it will speed up and slow down all winter long to maintain that comfort level that you should see in a house.
Thanks, Dave. We're just about at an hour, so we're going to do the final call for any questions. That went quick. It was a quick hour, Dave. Had a good time.
Yeah. I'm looking. I don't see any. I'm going to throw one out who doesn't look like he was able to make it tonight, but I've been saving this for you, Dave, knowing you were going to be our guest. And I think we all know Steve Martino. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I don't know if you caught it. About a month ago, he threw it out on Chatter, and I don't think you got a chance to catch it, Dave. So here's something for Team Takeo. He was thinking, the direction we've gone and are going with Bluetooth and apps. Any future, or is it even worth thinking about a future for having it marry up with something like Alexa, where hey Alexa, turn the temperature up in my living room. And that it communicates with Takeo products?
For us, probably not.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that would be more for the thermostat, right? So your thermostat's already doing that today, and they can communicate in that respect. I mean, I've got 6 zones in my house, and 3 of my stats are Wi-Fi style stats.
Okay.
But that would be more for that respect. Like like our pumps and like the controller having the Bluetooth connectivity, it's more about the setup for the installer rather than for the homeowner itself. Yeah. So we do have some safeguards built into those apps to not prevent, but to minimize inexperienced customers from messing around with the controls and creating a no heat situation in the house.
Sure.
So there are some functions in there to help alleviate that. Yes. So like we have a passcode to get into the controls, or a QR code that's on the inside cover. You have to take the cover off and know where it is. So, homeowners may or may not find that. And then once they do, then what do they do with it? So it's, and circulator is the same thing. So it is all about trying to make sure that we don't have a no heat situation at somebody's house as well.
Yeah. You don't want the customer through Alexa telling them they change the delta T.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's because we designed it for what it is, right? Delta T typically, doesn't change winter long. But your baseboard, fan coils are operating on 20-degree deltas. Your radiant might be on a 10-degree delta. Your snow melt's on a 30 or 40-degree delta, or your old cast iron rads on a 30. So that's why we have that flexibility, so you can change it around. So, yeah.
Great. So if we don't have any more questions, I guess we're going to call it a meeting. Thanks a lot, Dave. It was fantastic. Great having you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And the next edition of Oil Tech Talk Live is going to be Tuesday, December 9th. We're moving earlier in the month for the holidays. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and thank you, Dave.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Have a good night. Thank you very much.
All right.
Enjoy.
Yep.